There we go. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, I guess. Welcome to another episode of Otaku Podcast with your boys. I am formerly Senpai Zane. I guess I'm just Zane Reed now. As always, I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, the newly crowned Senpai Susu Day.
It was hard earned, and by hard earned I meant I watched a lot of anime over my youth.
Yeah, it all paid off in the end, right?
Your mum says, "Why are you doing that? Go out and achieve something." I did achieve something. Look at me now, Mum. Look at me.
Wow. For those who are listening for the very first time, I used to be Senpai Zane, but we had a wager in our last episode, and it turned out that that wager bit me in the bum. And I am no longer the senpai. I have officially lost my crown. But anyway, we are not here to have a pity party for me. We are here to talk about the Dark Trio. So
the triad.
There is a new wave of manga and anime, and it's really cool. Absolutely fantastic. I've really been enjoying it, and I know you have because we've messaged each other about this quite a lot. But I guess the question is, and this has been a question for numerous years, is this the new big three? Now, again, if you're new to anime and manga, the big three were the top-selling manga back in 2004, I believe. The Shonen Jump Big Three, as they're known. The Big Three contained of One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach.
They were the metric by which all other manga was measured.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, what I'm going to do is actually show some stats. I know. Shocker. So
this is so high tech.
Here we go. You ready? I'm going to share my screen. So this is the total copies of circulation of volumes for the big three. So as mentioned previously, I'll move that out of the way. We've got One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and there's some other manga here to just compare. So, for example, we've got My Hero Academia, Black Clover, and Jujutsu Kaisen, which is considered one of the Dark Trio to compare.
Definitely working its way up.
It is, isn't it? So, just to give you an idea, where are we? So, we've got One Piece here, which is I'm not quite sure. Oh, this is done by volumes. So, for example, by volume 28, One Piece had done 80,000.
It's 80 million.
Is it 80 million? Wow, sorry. Yeah, 80 million copies in circulation.
Only in Japan as well.
Yeah, these are physical copies in Japan. Where we've got down here, we've got Naruto, which was 40 million by volume 28. Bleach was down here. We're going to say, what's that, 30,000?
That is 40,000. Oh wait, no. Yeah, that goes up to 40,000.
40,000, yeah.
Yep.
So I guess Naruto was about 50,000. Sorry,
yeah.
And then as we look at some of the other volumes, so for example, Jujutsu Kaisen, just to compare, it's a similar sort of path as what Bleach was on in terms of volumes. By volume, what's that, 14?
Yeah, volume 14, volume 15 is kind of in between.
That sort of Naruto and Bleach number, which is about, I would say that's about 20 million copies.
Yeah. On its way, well on its way.
Well on its way. So really interesting stats, and really exciting for something again as new as Jujutsu Kaisen. So again, this leads me into the main subject. Do you think these new Dark Trio, again, Dark Trio consists Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, and Hell's Paradise, do you think they could go the distance?
I absolutely do think that they can go a different distance. Absolutely. I mean, as you know, and many others know, I am up to date on Jujutsu Kaisen. I
Mm-hmm.
am done with the current run of Chainsaw Man.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't yet started Hell's Paradise. I actually started that today, but I'm only like partway through chapter 1 at the recording of this podcast. But I think that they do have that magic formula that kind of
Mm-hmm.
is kind of really piqued the interest of readers. And I think it's really interesting because obviously they are like this dark trio. They're kind of famed for having these much darker, much more mature tones, but
Yeah.
they're all still hitting the same points that made manga like Naruto and
Mm-hmm.
Bleach and still One Piece. They're all hitting those kind of points that made those titles so good.
Yeah.
Like it's all very like, if you were to, and I'm sure that many people have done this on TikTok, if you dissect each of those stories, it's all
Mm-hmm.
basically telling the same story. It's just the setting and the nuance is different, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, let's say, for example, Jujutsu Kaisen. Like, you still have you still have what I refer to as like the architect type character,
Oh,
which
the
is
archetype, yeah.
yeah. So, um, the demon, the other being trapped inside your chosen one character sort of scenario. So it does kind of follow certain tropes, but at the same time, it does break certain rules as well that we've become accustomed to. So I really like that about, again, mainly Jujutsu Kaisen, because that's what I've read most of. I've read a little bit of Chainsaw Man. It does knock me knock me from six when I read it, like especially that first chapter. I was not expecting the way it went.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. It's a
what
real whirlwind.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But then I guess that's the charm of it, is the intrigue of it, and just wanting to know where they go with it. Um, Another thing I always kind of really liked about Jujutsu Kaisen is that Sukuna is there in the background, and he's not imprisoned, or he has his own agendas. Unlike, say, Kamaru, excuse me, the Nine-Tailed Fox.
Yeah, Kumara, yeah.
Nine-Tailed Fox was just kind of there for the ride, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He's in prison. There's not much he could do about it. Obviously, he wanted to get out, but
Yeah,
he,
if Naruto dies, he dies. He had stakes in Naruto's life,
mm,
whereas Sukuna got his own agenda, and he's like hundreds of years old, and if Yuji dies, he lives on through his other fingers. Like it's
yeah.
like no big deal for him.
And where I've got up to at certain points, he seems very capable of taking the wheel, like in terms of like taking over and doing his own things. Like, for example, when um, he has that fight with Mugen quite early on in the series and such, and he makes that deal with Ikido. I'm forgetting names today. I don't know what's going on with
Itadori.
me. Itadori, when he makes the deal with him and such. So yeah, he has this presence. He has, but it's always in the background. You're never quite sure when he's going to pounce, sort
Yeah.
of thing. I really
I think
like that.
that what sets it, I think that something else that really makes Sukuna a really fantastic kind of like passive villain in this
Mm.
all is the fact that when you had the Nine Tails in Naruto,
Hmm.
any conversation he had was exclusively with Naruto, whereas Sukuna can actually vocalize in the physical world as well as internally, like in his own little world. He can like speak to people around Yuji.
Yeah, that's very true. Like, and he makes his presence known as well, like by appearing on the hand or on his cheek and stuff. So yeah, that's very intriguing, and I like that.
But you got your like character-wise, you've got your Naruto character, you've got your Sasuke character, your brooding character, you've got your strong female lead like character who will kick the ass of the boy characters, and you've got your Kakashi character.
Yeah. There's definitely parallels there, but I guess another sort of aspect of, again, I'm going to say the Dark Trio, is things like the fan service. I haven't come across possibly any fan service when it came to Jujutsu Kaisen. I don't know if that picks up a little bit later on in Chainsaw Man, because again, it's not something I've read a lot of, but I believe something like the fan service has been really toned down in comparison to, say, for example, Bleach or One Piece.
Yeah, I think that they absolutely the authors are kind of sticking with what works, and I think that I think that a lot of it's probably on the publisher's part now as well. I think that they understand that if they just let the author fulfill their vision, they'll probably end up with a better end product. And I think that that's why we've been allowed to glimpse into this new area of like manga storytelling where we're getting these dark stories, because there's no longer a fear of the publisher, the people who are invested in it, to think we can't have it go too dark because we've got to appeal to a certain demographic. Whereas like the way that these stories are being told, they're much more mature stories, and then they're not looking to appeal to the younger demographic, and that's okay as long as it's like clearly established, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess like at the same time as well, like the demographic has a different, how do I say this? Not a different outlook, but I guess like a different sort of, I try and think of the word. You know how they say like, there's probably more violence now in like video games and things. They're not as sensitized to
of course
dark stuff like previously. So I guess like in comparison,
the stage has changed a lot. It's a lot different. So when we were younger, like stories like it was always about this like clean cut hero character, or even if it was a goofy kid who would go on to save the world. And now, and like no matter what happens, the people around them won't die. They always save the day. Whereas and I think that this is like probably as a result of a lot of mangaka actually being from the same age range. Now these like they're like kind of up and comers, and that they've kind of grown up in the same world that we have, and it's reflected in their writing, in their like drawing and stuff. So it's much more reflective of how the world seems to be, like even if it's not like directly calling out like this, that, and that. It's like the whole idea, like we're very focused on Jujutsu Kaisen right now, but the whole idea of like curses is that they draw their power and they come from people's negative like thoughts and emotions. So of course it would be a much darker story, because there's so much like absolute like chaos going on in the world. Of course, like if something like this was happened, the world would be rife with like these creatures.
And I guess something that you just briefly touched on is that with previous shonens, there's always the sense that quite a lot of the cast is protected. So again, we'll use Naruto for example. There's possibly sort of 2 deaths in Naruto sort of lifespan. You could talk about his parents, but I'm talking more about Jiraiya and
Like,
Neji.
yeah, main character, like really pivotal characters.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I think I know the term you're looking for. It's plot armor.
Yes. Yeah. Where with something like Jujutsu Kaisen, and again, I'm not going into spoilers, but there isn't that sense. They're not scared to let certain characters perish.
Absolutely, and I can attest to that, having read all of Chainsaw Man. I have not read enough of Hell's Paradise yet to make that judgment, but I'm gonna imagine that there's more of the same in there. I'm going into this expecting someone that I get attached to very quickly to die.
Yeah. So again, just from my own experience of those media so far, there doesn't seem to be, like you say, plot armor to protect those side characters and such. Like it seems the case that anyone could perish or be taken off the board.
Yeah, and I think I think that makes them more compelling stories as well, because there's actual stakes. Like you get really invested in a character, and then you care more about what happens to them because you understand that this author isn't messing around. This author will kill off this character, no matter how attached people are to it. In fact, they might do it because we're attached to that character, just to get a response out of us.
Yeah, it felt like Game of Thrones was doing that at one point. Yeah, I completely agree. The other thing that I've noticed with these is the use of the panels in terms of when it comes to action. Absolutely fantastic and gorgeous. Like there's, and I guess another sort of element is that there isn't a lot of explaining. Like, do you know how to explain this? I guess if you were to compare something like JoJo and Bleach, JoJo, there's a lot of the hero trying to figure out the battle and what's happening and such. Where with something like Bleach, they tell you, this is my Bankai. My Bankai is X, Y, and Z, and it does this. And then, it's down to being powerful. But with Jujutsu Kaisen, and again, Chainsaw Man, what I've read so far, I don't think there's a lot of that. Like, I feel like it's kind of just amazing, sort of well-paced fight sequences with stakes.
Yeah, and they're also getting a lot more clever with. I think that a lot of authors, storytellers now have realized that, like, having very clear-cut, powerful powers kind of takes away some of the like magic of it. You think you can't. They kind of don't want you to be thinking that every character who has powers is always going to have this like phenomenal, like really clever, like this really strong ability that they'll be able to use. It's more like they're kind of thinking of very interesting ways that people can have power. Like I'm just trying to think of a good example. You've got Nobara, the female main, I guess, in Jujutsu Kaisen. Her ability is really interesting because I think that she's herself is not physically very strong, but her ability is very strong if she can make the hit. You've got characters like Todo, and his whole like move set is like that whole switching thing that he can do, where he like claps his hands and he switches with whatever he wants to switch with, like abilities like that. I mean, the very idea of Chainsaw Man when I first heard about it, I was like, it can't be that literal.
Yeah.
And it really is. Like, he is a chainsaw man. So it's like I do like that, and I think that makes me more keen to read, because I'm interested to see how the story can play out and how they might find interesting ways to utilize these very unique abilities.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess like the sort of magic system in them have been very sort of basic. Like, I don't find them too over bearing or too complicated to understand, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they
There also
can
appears
see,
to be cost as well to it. Like there,
yeah.
I like abilities that, and I think that this is shown best in like things like My Hero Academia, is
Hmm.
that everyone's got these abilities, but there's always a cost to using those abilities, be it like Deku trying to use all for one, one for all even, and like shattering all the bones in his arm, or
Yeah.
you know, there's always some sort of like negative. Like I like it when there's a consequence for using power.
Yeah, or like a limit on said power.
Yeah,
Yeah, like you said, using My Hero, for example, um, even someone like Twice, like, he can only do so much before he feels like he's losing his mind and stuff, which is a really cool concept.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I completely agree with you. Um, yeah, if the Dark Trio doesn't outdo the big three, and again, there's every chance it could do. Um, I think it would definitely inspire another new wave of mangas, and again, possibly shonen mangas that we couldn't even think of. Again, maybe it's dark like what we have now. I know a lot of people make comparisons to Bleach being quite the dark one of the big three. Um, so it does make me wonder what sort of new wave this could create going
yeah.
forward.
It's an interesting experiment in thought, I guess. The one thing that I do wonder, and this is just going back to what you were just saying about how whether or not the Dark Trio will kind of achieve the same success in terms of
Mm,
numbers, is that we obviously now live in a time where those metrics are probably not as accurate,
mhm.
because it's now so easy to read, to obtain like manga online,
Yeah,
through like free means as opposed to purchasing it. So I don't
yeah,
think that those stats that you like, especially because like things like Naruto, like One Piece has obviously gone on for like a million chapters, so
yeah.
it's clearly going to have the highest numbers. But One Piece, sorry, Bleach and Naruto, they've ended, and they ended
Mm,
at a time where probably at the best time for physical copies of manga. Whereas
yeah.
now it's so easy to just go online and type in like X title, chapter, something, and you can get it online, and that's not going to be reflected in the success of the manga. You
That's
know?
very true. But as an example, with the West, physical copy of mangas have been doing exceptionally well. To the point, again, I know this is something that we've spoken about off recording, but outselling, you know, major Western comics like DC and Marvel. It's crazy to think, but the last couple of months, there's been titles like Demon Slayer that's outsold Batman and Spider-Man comics
Mm.
in physical copies. There's been droughts of copies of Jujutsu Kaisen with retailers because of its popularity. Again, mainly coming off the back of the anime, but there is definitely a demand, especially here in the West, for the physical copies of it, which makes me happy as an old man. But
Yeah. Nah, it's I feel like obviously COVID's everywhere has been awful for so many people, for everybody,
mm,
but it's kind of created this really interesting melting pot where it's been much easier for fans of anime and manga to convince people who don't watch it to
mhm,
give it a go.
yeah,
And I know that like the big turnoff for a lot of people in getting started on things is it's already got so many episodes and I'm so far behind, I'm a bit overwhelmed by it.
yeah,
Like COVID has created this like kind of really unique opportunity where people have been able to, like they've had the time to sink into things that they might not have been able to do in the past. And it's unfortunate that it's come at the expense of so much. But
I
like,
see, yeah,
it's like it's a small nugget of something. Like there are so many people who like I mean, this is like outside of like anime and manga, but I'm a massive fan of like Dungeons and Dragons, and I watch a lot of like streams, and the fact that people have been stuck at home has given people a lot more time to try out the game and find out that they actually do really like it. It's like, so I think that the Dark Trio probably to some degree owes its recent success on the state of the world, which is quite a weird and sad thing to say.
Yeah, it's no secret. Like, media streaming, especially, has been consumed at a more higher rate because more people are self-isolating, staying at home, and things of that nature. But as you were saying, it's meant that more people have had to maybe discover things that they would never have normally given chance. So again, things like Demon Slayer, which is on Netflix, which is everyone's pretty much
Everyone's got on
household.
Netflix, yeah.
Yeah. I feel has been, part of its success and why it became, one of the biggest anime movies of this year. Well, probably 2020. It's just because of its accessibility on Netflix and all the other streaming apps.
Absolutely.
And again, like you say, there's no fear of feeling left behind because Demon Slayer isn't a One Piece sort of big piece of media to try and consume, is it? So yeah, there's all these videos I've seen of people introducing, say, again, Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan and things of that nature, because time is now. Why not?
Absolutely.
And to an extent, like even for us oldies, I picked up JoJo, which I didn't think I'd ever pick up, but I thought, why not? Like, I've got all this time, why not? And it's turned out to be the best thing I ever did.
I know, honestly. I slept on it for so long, and then I did it, and oh my god, such a treat. Such a treat. We gotta get. My biggest joy will be when we can get Ray to read it or watch it. Like, at least get him to get up to Golden Winds, get up to date, just get him included in those memes.
I can't tell you how many times I felt like I could go back, even though it hasn't been like 6 months. I'm like really. Anyways, I'm turning into a stand. Like
gushing over JoJo.
I need to calm it down. Dark Trio, as we mentioned, they're successful regardless. Like even for a new generation of audience, if this is their big three, is a great big three for them to hook onto.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, I'm just interjecting with another thing here.
Yeah,
just come to my mind just now. I think a lot of what could make them popular, I know that this probably will not be the case for Hell's Paradise, but definitely for Chainsaw Man and definitely for Jujutsu Kaisen, is that they are grounded in the real world.
Yes.
They are grounded in our world, and as a result, at least in things like Jujutsu Kaisen, they drop references that are actually relevant to us. Like the whole, I know it became such a meme, but the fact that like Todo like talks and Itadori talk about like Jennifer Lawrence and stuff like that, and like, and it's set in a more relatable world. They talk about places that we know. Like obviously we're not Japanese, we don't live in Japan, so I imagine it's a much bigger deal for people who like live in Japan. But like the very mention, like in the Death Note Another World, like the one shot that ran set after the conclusion, like the fact that like they introduced characters like Trump is a massive character in that one shot as like the president of the United States of America, and it's like to see it like these things that are very relevant to us be kind of like included in like this media that we've been reading for like decades now, and this kind of it makes it a lot more interesting to pick up, you know.
Absolutely. Like it's, there is. I was just thinking of Bleach in terms of, even though Bleach is set in the real world, a lot of it doesn't happen in the real world, because it happens in Hook de Mundo, happens in Soul Society.
And even then, it's like set in a fictional town in Japan. It's like there's nothing like, I mean, I've never been to a small town in Japan, but it's like it could be any town, which is probably what they were going for. But it's like Jujutsu Kaisen is set in Tokyo. Tokyo Ghoul. It's set in a real world setting with kind of like these fantastical elements, which is what's really cool, because it kind of makes you at some point like you think, if I were to like suspend my disbelief like this, if like, let's imagine that what's going on in this story is a real thing, like this is actually happening and we just can't see it, you know. It's like kind of makes you like, it gives you that sense of like wonder, doesn't it, about things when things are set in the real world. So I think that's what this is a bit long shot. I think that's what makes stories like Harry Potter so popular, is that it's built on this world that is hidden from the real world. Yeah,
absolutely. It's the secret war concept, isn't it?
Absolutely.
War behind closed doors.
It could be. It could be happening anywhere in the world, and you'd never know.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I always prefer Digimon over Pokemon.
Yeah, and I think I used to be a massive Pokemon stan when I was younger, but I think that as I've grown older, I realised that from a story standpoint, not maybe just from a thematic standpoint, I think I prefer Digimon, because it's kind of it is an isekai, isn't it? It's basically
it's the original isekai. That's the thing.
And boy, do we love an isekai on this show.
Yes, but I do. Now, this is a little bit off topic, but knowing that Hell's Paradise is in Shonen Jump, I do wonder, with the introduction of Trojan X, I do wonder if it maybe will outdo Hell's Paradise because of the popularity of Tokyo Ghoul.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm kind of like I said, I've only recently been able to start reading Trojan X, and I like the concept of it. But it's like kind of, it's in that very early stages of like kind of a new concept where I'm not sure where it's going or how it's gonna mature. Not to say it's not good. Like I'm very very invested in what's happening. Like I really want to know what's going to happen next. But like at the moment, there's only a few chapters out. I don't know what's going to happen. I've got no idea where this story is going. But if it's obviously written by the author of Tokyo Ghoul, it's gonna get dark. You can see that it's gonna get dark.
Yeah. I as I say, knowing Tokyo Ghoul, and again knowing the popularity that was around it, I do wonder if that's going to elevate Trojan X into sort of mainstream, sort of concept and such.
I'm actually just imagining, just going back to Chainsaw Man, that Chainsaw Man's manga might have a spike of popular. Like, I know it's obviously very popular at the moment, but it might have a sudden spike, because already, I mean, we've only seen the trailer for the anime, and it is Mappa at their finest. Like, it looks. It just. I don't have any words to really describe the work that Mappa do. Honestly,
I completely agree. Like, if Demon Slayer and My Hero are anything to go by, I'm expecting a surge of for it. And I guess that's the reason why they're kind of gearing up to a Chainsaw Man 2 sort of sequel manga. It's to capitalize more on it. I don't know how much more the author has in terms of content for that story and such. Or
I'm interested to see where it will go, because it feels like that it ended at a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah.
So I'm unsure if it's going to be kind of an alternate story, or whether it
Yeah.
is going to be a direct continuation. I feel like there probably are some strands that were left unanswered, but it's like kind of it's difficult. I can't envision what it will be, because it feels like where it ended was a natural ending point for it.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's difficult to kind of go through. I mean, once you get to the end of it, do give me your opinion on it, because you might have a different opinion on it of like where you think it could go. But
Yeah.
as it stands, I'm not really clear where it's going to go. So
yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out soon enough. Especially that it's going to be a Viz Plus exclusive as well. So again, for those who are unaware, Viz are the publication for Shonen Jump, but they also have a online app to read exclusive titles like Kaiju 8, which is another fantastic series.
Oh, Kaiju 8. Give me another chapter, and then give me an anime, because
I was just going to
I
say,
am
give me
into
an anime.
it. I am so into Kaiju 8. It's such a well, we're getting really off topic, but I don't care. Like, it's such a great take. It's such a great and different take on the kaiju kind of like setting of a story. Like, we've seen kaiju like Godzilla be the hero, like be the anti-hero. So it's very interesting to see what they've done with Kaiju 8, because it's kind of that, but not.
Yeah. It's I'm trying to think of anything more recent that's like it. I guess in a weird way, it's kind of like the Ultraman, but in a new concept.
Yeah, I'd also maybe in a less kind of fantastical way. Maybe it's just different, but also Ranger Reject is kind of got that same feel as Kaiju 8.
Yeah, very much so.
And that's also something else I will like to see it animated at some point, because it's such an interesting. I like it when they take these concepts that are like kind of so deeply ingrained in Japanese culture, and they kind of like give them a fresh spin, like the idea that like in Ranger Reject that the Rangers are the bad guys as opposed to the aliens that they're fighting every single week. Stuff. And it's kind of it's a really interesting take on it. And obviously Kaiju number 8, like, what do you do when like the thing that you've been aiming to fight your whole life becomes what you are?
Yeah. It's a really, like you say, it's taking these old classic IPs and then flipping the script on them. It's a really cool idea and premise and such. So yeah, I really like these weird ones. I wonder if they'll have their own sort of subcategory in due course.
But I mean, I sure like that. I mean, there are so many good and unusual manga that I've read, which I think would be great as anime. But like, it's all about kind of readership, isn't it? About whether you get thing like completely outside of the kind of area of anime we were talking about today. But there was a manga called Stars that I was reading, that I read, and it finished a long time ago. And it's basically about this kid who he wants to go to space, and he's fascinated by space, and the whole story is about him getting into this, like, about Earth receiving this signal from outside of the solar system, and like they're gonna get a force together to like an exploration force together to go and explore it. And it's all about him going to like this school to learn how to be an astronaut and stuff like that. And it's like,
oh wow,
it would have been like the most beautiful anime if it got the right animator, I think.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
We've all
was
got
it like a wholesome sort of, like, was it more wholesome than it was like a battle shonen?
It wasn't a battle shonen. No, it was all about. It was very, it's very slice of life sci-fi. Like, there were there was, for the most of it, there was like, this is an alien signal what we've received, and then like you find out that there are certain characters who they're human, but they're more than human as well. It wasn't like there was no battles in it, but it was kind of. I might share it with you, like let you, or share a synopsis with you so you can kind of get an idea for it. I don't think I mean, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I think it's the sort of thing that you would read a couple of chapters of and get bored with.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
I like me having. I've got like I love reading and watching stuff about space, so it was like kind of, it really hit all the things that I wanted to hit. You know, so.
So just in case for those who are listening, it was called Stars.
It's called Stars with the A is an ampersand, the hand symbol. So I don't think can I share screen on here? I can share screen. So let me see if I can find it, because it was in Weekly Jump. There's a Weekly Jump title.
Oh wow!
Yeah, if I share screen, is it going to share this screen or that screen?
It should tell you beforehand.
Well, look at me being no good at technology. Oh, it's going to be the smallest picture. This is so annoying, but there we go. So this is just my tiny little thumbnail here.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh,
I don't know why it's flashing. Why is it flashing? Okay.
No, that's cool. That looked cool. Yeah, that's.
It had a great art style. It was just kind of, it was good. I really enjoyed it, and would have loved to have seen it got on anime, but such is the way, I guess.
I guess that's everything. I know we kind of spinned into a little tangent at the end there, but is there any other key points you wanted to mention?
I mean, I'm just generally just interested to see how manga and anime continues to evolve. I'm been a massive fan of the medium since I was like in my pre-teens. I'm kind of in that state now where I'm absolutely psyched that it's become like kind of just, it's become socially acceptable to be a fan of anime and manga. There's also a part of me that's a little bit bitter that it's so easy to consume it now, and that there are so many people who would, you know, when you have those stories of like people who've like, you see someone who you used to go to school with who might have been someone who like would have like given you a hard time for liking something, a certain thing, and they're like now saying, "Oh, this thing was amazing." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So you get a bit of bitterness, but I am ultimately just psyched to bits that like it's become its an art form all of its own that people will actually giving the time of day for, and because they're giving the time of day to it, we're going to get we're more likely to get like cinematic releases of like some big things. Like obviously we've been lucky enough to go and like see the last couple of My Hero movies on the big screen. We saw Dragon Ball Z Super in the cinema as well. It was an amazing experience, and I'm hoping that the sudden spike of interest in the West will allow us to more accessibly see stuff like that without having to drive like to the next like city over, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with what you're saying there. I really like the influence it's having on other businesses. Again, there's a lot more sort of Western comics adopting the style. So there's quite a few artists that have obviously been inspired by anime growing up and such. One of them being Jorge Ramirez, who's on the current Batman comic. But at the same time, I have to admit, I'm quite happy to see manga outselling Western comics as well, with titles
the dream.
With titles like Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man being in the top 10, 20 in that regard. So it's really cool. It's a cool time to get involved and read and watch anime.
If you can open your mind just for long enough to understand that some countries have a different reading and writing system to us, and it's not just a weird backwards book, you will open your life to an incredible experience of incredible stories. Like, go back, read things like Death Note, read things like, there are all sorts of titles out there that
Mm,
people have missed out on because they've snubbed it or seen it as not a real source of media. Now
yeah,
people can go back and enjoy stuff like that. You know, as long as they
absolutely.
don't give us any more terrible Western adaptations like live actions,
Yes.
I will never get over Dragon Ball Z.
I don't know if you ever watched that Death Note one that Netflix did.
I didn't. My
Uh,
wife did, but I.
yeah, that was a bit of pill. But anyways, thank you so much to Susie Day for joining us. As always, thank you for listening or watching this on YouTube. Very much appreciate you taking the time to listen to us rabbit on. But as always, make sure you like, share, subscribe, pop a comment. We'd love to see what your thoughts are. What do you think of the Dark Trio? Do you think they're great? Do you think that maybe Trojan X or maybe other titles should be the new Dark Trio? We want to
Do you
know.
have any dark titles for us? Give us. I need more to read.
Yeah, we're always looking for more recommendations, even if it is more JoJo. Um, shh. Uh, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and we shall no doubt catch you on the next one.